He saw an alien in the forest. In 1974, Carl Higdon was abducted in Wyoming. October 25, 1974, Wyoming. Carl Higdon, a seasoned hunter familiar with every rustle of Wyoming's wilderness, took careful aim at an elk, a routine he repeated countless times. But as he pulled the trigger, reality itself seemed to falter. Instead of the familiar kickback and echoing gunshot, Carl watched in disbelief as a bullet left his rifle slowly, silently drifting forward before abruptly dropping, twisted and lifeless, to the forest floor. In the chilling silence that followed, Carl noticed something impossible. Standing among the trees, watching him intently, was a figure that defied explanation. Tall and humanoid, its skin unnaturally pale yellow. It stared with small, deep-set eyes, its mouth a thin slit revealing oversized teeth. The creature introduced himself calmly, in clear English, as also one. Carl's heart raced, confusion and primal fear surging through him. This is no animal, no hallucination. Before he could react, the being extended an arm with a device instead of a hand, beckoning him forward. Carl felt an overwhelming sense of dread as the forest around him blurred and faded. What happened next would leave Carl disoriented and stranded miles away, his life changed forever. But to understand the full scale of this extraordinary encounter, we must delve deeper into the inexplicable details that made this case one of America's most astonishing alien abductions. Rawlins, Wyoming, nestled on the edge of the rugged Medicine Bow National Forest, was a kind of quiet, hard-working town typical of rural America in the mid-1970s. Residents went about their lives unhurriedly, grounded firmly in routines shaped by seasonal rhythms, hunting, fishing, and laboring in the nearby oil fields. Carl Higdon, at 41, was a very embodiment of this life, a reliable, straightforward oil field worker known for his practicality and down-to-earth personality. Locals described him as honest, cautious, and quietly skeptical, hardly someone prone to flights of fancy or wild imagination. Hunting was more than just recreation for Carl. It was tradition, a way to connect with the vast wilderness surrounding Rawlins. The Medicine Bow National Forest, sprawling silently under the wide-open Wyoming skies, had always been familiar territory. Friends recall Carl as a meticulous and experienced hunter, intimately familiar with the forest trails and wildlife habits. Yet, in the weeks leading up to Carl's inexplicable encounter, a subtle unease had quietly seeped into local conversations. Fellow hunters had casually mentioned unusual lights flickering silently among the trees. Strange, transient sightings easily dismissed as reflections or the tricks of tired eyes. Still, whispers persisted, adding a barely noticeable tension to the familiar backdrop of life in Rawlins. Carl, practical and unassuming as ever, paid little attention to idle chatter. Like most townspeople, his days continued as usual. Long shifts at the oil rigs, evenings spent preparing his gear for hunting trips. No one in this tight-knit community imagined their ordinary lives would soon collide with something so profoundly extraordinary. But normalcy has a way of shattering abruptly, often without warning. And for Carl Higdon, a routine hunting trip was about to unravel into an encounter far beyond the comprehension of anyone in Rawlins. An event destined to become one of America's most compelling mysteries. Deep in the forest, Carl Higdon steadied his breath, puzzled by the impossible stillness around him. Moments earlier, the woods had teemed with life. Now, silence pressed down heavily, broken only by the muffled beating of his heart. His gaze locked onto the distorted bullet at his feet, disbelief clouding his senses. Reality itself felt fractured. Then, from the corner of his vision, movement caught his attention. A tall, pale figure emerged silently through the trees, gliding effortlessly as if the rugged forest terrain held no obstacle. Carl later described the being vividly. Its skin was pale, unsettling yellow, stretched tightly across a face without ears, punctuated only by small, deep-set eyes and a thin, slit-like mouth revealing unnervingly large teeth. The being's hair stood upright, rigid and straw-like, framing a head that looked distinctly non-human. It wore a sleek black jumpsuit, adorned with a yellow star at the waist, where its right hand should have been. There was instead a strange metallic drill-like appendage. "How you doing?" it asked calmly, in clear English. "I'm also one." Carl's body flooded with a surge of primal terror, yet he remained rooted in place, paralyzed, fascinated, unable to move or even respond. He stared at Also One, extended its strange appendage, holding a pill-like object, speaking again in its oddly soothing tone. "Take this. It will sustain you for 4 days." Carl hesitated, but, against every instinct screaming inside him, took the pill and swallowed it. A bizarre tranquility washed over him, calming his nerves, but deepening the surreal nature of the encounter. Then, before he could grasp the reality unfolding around him, Carl found himself transported abruptly into the interior of a transparent, cube-shaped craft. Inside, suspended motionlessly in midair, was the elk Carl had been tracking, its body eerily frozen as if captured mid-stride. Beyond the craft's transparent walls, the landscape rapidly changed, replaced by stars streaking past impossibly fast. Carl watched in muted awe, powerless yet deeply conscious of the unprecedented event engulfing him. The craft halted abruptly, hovering above an alien terrain dominated by towering structures Carl could not recognize. Beings similar to Also One approached, examining him methodically, their intentions indecipherable yet clinical. Carl felt exposed, vulnerable, and overwhelmingly alone in this distant, unfamiliar world. Then, just as quickly as it had begun, the encounter ended. Carl found himself back on Earth, disoriented and stranded miles from his initial position. His truck sat inexplicably stuck in mud, its location defying rational explanation. Shaken and bewildered, Carl struggled to piece together the fragments of his fractured memory, knowing only that he had experienced something truly inexplicable, an encounter that would remain etched vividly in his mind forever. Yet, Carl's ordeal had barely begun. Soon, his story would draw intense scrutiny, thrusting him into the harsh glare of public disbelief and scientific curiosity. The most profound questions still remained unanswered. What had Carl truly experienced, and why had this being, Also One, chosen him? When Carl Higdon's bewildering story first surfaced, the reactions in Rawlins ranged from cautious curiosity to outright disbelief. Local media were quick to spotlight his extraordinary claims, initially framing his encounter as an outlandish tale, too bizarre to accept at face value. Skepticism dominated early coverage, emphasizing Carl's isolation in the forest and suggesting confusion, hallucination, or even an elaborate hoax. Yet, skepticism faced stubborn, compelling anomalies, physical evidence impossible to dismiss casually. Carl's rifle bullet, recovered inexplicably twisted and undamaged by impact, baffled ballistic experts who failed to replicate such deformation in any standard tests. Equally perplexing was Carl's pickup truck, found abandoned in rugged terrain miles from its last known location, an area completely inaccessible to his two-wheel drive vehicle. Even skeptics struggled to logically explain these tangible mysteries. Community reactions varied sharply. Friends and coworkers who knew Carl as rational and reliable defended him vigorously, arguing he had neither motive nor personality to fabricate such a story. Others viewed Carl's experience as a disturbing yet explainable psychological event, possibly triggered by exhaustion or undisclosed health issues. Local gossip wavered uneasily between acceptance and ridicule, leaving Carl increasingly isolated, torn between supportive neighbors and skeptical whispers. As public debate grew, experts from diverse fields weighed in thoughtfully. Dr. Leo Sprinkle, a respected psychologist from the University of Wyoming, conducted extensive hypnosis sessions with Carl, reinforcing consistency in his detailed recollections. Sprinkle publicly stated Carl's sincerity, nothing genuine emotional distress during hypnotic regressions, indicative of authentic experience rather than invention. Conversely, scientific skeptics propose alternative theories, grounded firmly in known natural phenomena. Some experts speculated Carl may have encountered an intense atmospheric or electromagnetic event, rare yet scientifically plausible, potentially triggering temporary hallucinations or distorted perceptions. Ufologists, however, countered fiercely, pointing to Carl's remarkably detailed descriptions, aligning closely with other documented abduction cases, emphasizing parallels in global UFO phenomena. Authorities, meanwhile, found themselves in an investigative impasse. Despite thorough searches and forensic analysis, no definitive conclusions emerged. Official reports noted the absence of detectable radiation, burns, or physical injuries, further deepening ambiguity. The lack of conventional evidence, paradoxically, strengthened both skeptic and believer positions, each side using gaps in official findings to reinforce their contrasting interpretations. Decades later, Carl Higdon's abduction remains an enduring enigma, rich with contradictions and fiercely debated theories. It stands unresolved, inviting continued speculation, yet steadfastly resisting definitive explanation. To truly understand this extraordinary event, we must accept that its very uncertainty is part of its lasting impact, a mystery that refuses to be neatly solved. But what became of Carl himself in the aftermath? How did this profoundly unsettling experience alter his life? And what final truths might be gleaned from its own reflections in the years following the incident? Decades after Carl Higdon's encounter, questions linger stubbornly, resisting closure, demanding reflection. No official investigation, scientific analysis, or skeptical explanation has entirely unraveled the baffling events of that day. Carl himself remains steadfastly sincere, quietly carrying the heavy burden of his extraordinary experience, unchanged by time. For Carl, life after the abduction was marked by quiet resilience and persistent introspection. Friends noted subtle but lasting changes in him, a heightened thoughtfulness, a deeper appreciation for life's mysteries, yet also a quiet sorrow, an understanding that something fundamental about reality might forever elude his grasp. Was Carl genuinely taken aboard a spacecraft, interacting with beings from beyond our world? Or could there be simpler, yet equally mysterious explanations hidden in plain sight? Could nature itself have momentarily revealed phenomena we still fail to understand? Or is the truth more personal, existing somewhere within Carl's own mind, a profound encounter he alone can fully grasp? Ultimately, Carl Higdon's story remains compelling precisely because of its unanswered questions. It serves as a quiet yet powerful reminder of how little we truly know and how deeply such mysteries can shape the human spirit. Perhaps the truth is still out there, patiently waiting for those who dare to keep exploring. What do you believe really happened to Carl Higdon that day? Share your thoughts below, and as always, stay curious. Was Carl Higdon's extraordinary experience in Wyoming a genuine encounter with an extraterrestrial being? Or could there be a simpler explanation hidden beneath the surface? Share your thoughts in the comments below.